Welcome to Uncle Geoffee's Electric Picture Book Stories. I am your host, Uncle Geoffee. Today's offering is called Grigget Bax and Burgandy. Let's check it out, shall we? I walked the street in the direct light. The morning air was crisp and bright. My satchel dangled by my side as if being taken for a ride. Not in a hurry, I slowed my pace. This really was not a race, for I had lots of time to spare to more enjoy the crisp, clear air. No one was out and no one seemed in at 20 minutes after 10. This made me feel all alone on a planet I called my home. I had packed my lunch today instead of the usual replay of cafeteria food, bland, cold. The routine was getting terribly old. The reason that I walked alone was I just got a brand new home, and when I'd moved away I'd find I had to leave old friends behind. And so I walked the concrete street and kicked a pebble with my feet, but when the pebble came to stop, it grew to be a bigger rock. And while I stared in disbelief, it grew a mouth, and then some teeth. 2 eyes then formed, and in no time it spoke aloud. It had a mind. "Why do you stare?" it said to me. "You disbelieve what you now see? You only have to close your eyes, and I'll be gone with no surprise. But I see curiosity in you, a need to know and be, and I can take you to a land where you can have what you command. How would you like to be a frog, or crawl right through a hollow log, 1,000 feet up in the air, no poles, no wires, just floating there? The possibilities abound. Why, buried treasure can be found on lowly islands in the sea. I'll take you there, and all for free." And while I stared and couldn't blink and couldn't move, I had to think. Perhaps my mind had gotten sore. I've never talked to rocks before. Again it opened up its mouth, looked to the north and then the south, and said, "You need but say these words to take you soaring with the birds, to faraway adventure lands of golden sun and silver sands, and butterflies at every turn. So much to see, so much to learn." I finally found my voice to say, "I don't think I've the sway to visit strange and distant soil. No more design, no more toil." But when I finished saying that, the rock just closed its eyes and sat, as quiet as a little mouse inside a quiet little house. Again it raised its eyes to see me fidgeting uneasily, and then it spoke in monotone these words to me and me alone. "Grigget Bax and Burgandy, upside down security, better be yet better dream, for many thoughts go forth unseen." And with those words the rock that spoke just vanished in a puff of smoke. I puzzled up and puzzled down, then puzzled square and puzzled round. First and foremost, I must say that I'm much too old to play, and yet the anxious kid in me was jumping up and down with glee. Should I say those words it said, that right then echoed in my head? I thought, why not? I'll speak them true, just to see what they would do. "Grigget Bax and Burgandy, upside down security, better be yet better dream, for many thoughts go forth unseen." I closed my eyes, then opened up in hopes of seeing buttercups, or clear and sparkling waterfalls, or maybe 10-foot ivy walls. Instead, it looked like nothing changed, the street, the sidewalks, all the same, except ideas in my brain were really coming down like rain. Maybe I should try to soar, and tried to jump up off the floor, but nothing happened. I was bound. I hadn't even left the ground. Though if at first you don't succeed, try different things. It is agreed. And when I raised my arms at last, I felt a power had been cast. So flapping them just once or twice, I took to flight so free and nice. It seemed so normal, natural, to climb the skies and leave the soil. Up through the clouds, up toward the sun, with other birds my flight begun. A parakeet and spotted wrens were now to be my newest friends. We talked a conversation long, with flapping wings and happy song. The feeling was of total glee that I had conquered gravity. I'd lift my arm to turn away, then lift the other one and play, like pilots in a diving raid, or hawks after their cornered prey. Before I'd flown much further on, a rainbow showed itself beyond, with yellows, reds, some blues and greens, and colors only seen in dreams. Though rainbows witnessed many times in younger years were quite sublime, but never could I fly through one, or touch the moon, or catch the sun. But fly through it, I thought, was good. I knew I could, and should, and would, and did with my mere human wings, through swirling shades of silver strings. Then in a moment the rainbow through, the sky again was back to blue, with fluffy clouds below my feet and air that smelled of bittersweet. I wanted to fly higher still, to crest the top of any hill and mountain that got in my way, or building high, or come what may.
It was just then I soon observed I'd flown higher than any bird, the earth below and me up here, clear through the planet's atmosphere. 4,000 stars began to show and lit the path where I could go, and left then right or any place on solar wind I soared through space. Just then I had to blink my eyes and was no longer in the skies, but on the ship of any sea whose mast stood out majestically. The ocean lapped against the bow and made me wonder why and how a ship of such enormous bulk could actually stay afloat. Her mast bore mighty pure black sails, and all around were oaken rails with many ports for cannon fire, and piracy our main desire. I wore a black three-cornered hat, and on my shoulder a bird now sat, a parrot wanting crackers, please, its feathers flitting in the breeze. My crew, a cold-blood-thirsty bunch, just ate their last morsel for lunch, and slowly started up to me while speaking words of mutiny. But I, the captain of this ship, withdrew the sword beside my hip, and said, "Behold, ye scurvy dog, another schooner through the fog. She lists of cargo in her hold, aye, she carries food and gold. So hoist the Jolly Roger quick, and raise the sails, I want that ship." We soon brought my ship to ride along the schooner's starboard side, and boarded her so quick and sure that we were just a hazy blur. The schooner's crew fought valiantly, all in the name of their country, with flashing swords and stubborn pride, their aging captain as their guide. But soon this crew was tired and sore, and all soon wound up overboard, and thus I walked on down below to see what goods I might behold. And when I came up top again, I smiled at my tired men, for in my life of pirating such treasures I had never seen. Riches you would not believe lay underneath our very feet, gold and silver, diamonds, glass, forks and spoons of bronze and brass. Coins from every nation known, and jewelry bearing every stone, and food enough to feed my men for 8 whole days, or 9, or 10. And through my mission I achieved the riches of humanity. I stood a moment, closed my eyes, and wondered of my new surprise. Those magic words I'd said before were opening up many doors of wonderment, adventures real, and great new things to live and feel. Excitement couldn't hold me down. I raised my eyes and looked around, expecting almost anything to fill this wild and wondrous dream. And now I was inside a hut of wooden walls, the windows shut, and straw above me kept the rain from entering my new domain. The room was empty, but for one lone table and chair, and some old dusty books on creaky shelves that more than likely told of elves. But on the table sat some jars and models of crude tiny cars, while others held some liquid goo that looked real gross and smelled bad too. Now on my body a long black gown that covered me completely down, and on my head a pointed hat with stars and moons which told me that I was a wizard in my prime, lost in some medieval time. The air was still, but for the sound of leaves outside being blown around. Yet something else was here with me. I felt its presence presently, and looked around this darkened room where just a candle chased the gloom. And high upon a ceiling beam a lonely crow sat silently, looking down with eyes of black, while I below was looking back. "You see me here," it finally said, "great wizard with the pointed head." I told it that was not my head, but a covering of mighty thoughts instead. And my wizardry was straight and true, and all things that I could do. But what of all these books and things? The crow then lifted up his wings, and flew down to my shoulder, where he perched and kinda pulled my hair. "You see the future," he remarked. "You see in light, you see in dark. And though the words you speak are true, you scare those not as wise as you. For you have spoken to the kings of metal carts that carry things, except they're powered on their own without a horse to make them go, and great big silver birds that fly and carry people through the sky. You also told of castles tall that hold a city in their walls, and medicine that cures the ills of many pains that people feel. And while the future might just hold the many things that you have told, it's true that people are afraid of things that haven't yet been made. And so the king and queen decreed that you be banished here with me in this forest, in this room, to never see the sun or moon." And having said those mighty words, I saw a tear fall from this bird. I ask him now, why be so sad? Things aren't really all that bad. I am a wizard after all. This will be fun. Just watch that wall. And picking up my magic wand, I spoke the words Parapipple Pond. And when I finished saying that, the hut was gone in no time flat. The bird now lifted up its head, and with a squawk turned and said, "You are a wizard, that is true. What other magic can you do?" Then I raised my wand again and said, "Here's where the fun begins. Although the king is old and round, and he has banned us from his town, let us go and visit him, and show him how I do my thing." And with the words bing, bang, and bound, a puff of smoke and crackling sound, we now stood before his throne. I bowed and said, "You might have known that banning me was something that you really shouldn't do just yet." And much to my astonishment, he sat there quietly, intent on making me prove what I had said. I raised my wand and cleared my head, and as he stared so silently, I asked this man who doubted me, "Do you think maybe I should change the color of the sky, or hollow out the forest's trees and fill them all with honeybees? But first I think I'll make the king snort and sneeze at everything." And then I said some magic words, and thunder overhead was heard. It didn't take him very long before the king sneezed up a storm, and while he had his sneezing fits, I gave the queen a nasty itch that started in her left earlobe and went down to her little toe. And when he'd sneezed his seventh sneeze, the king said, "Wizard, pretty please, stop this sneezing, I implore. My throat is getting awful sore. And stop the queen from scratching so." I raised my wand and then said, "Go." So with another thunder blast, he stopped his sneezing, she her scratch. And as I lowered down my hands, I told him, "I've one more command. Since you have seen what I can do, let's work together, me and you." He put his chin down to his chest while he pondered this request, then told me, lifting up his head, "Your powers are as you have said, and I was wrong to cast you out, but now I've very little doubt that what you say of future things just might be what the future brings, and I will listen patiently while you explain these things to me. And maybe after listening I could be a better king and serve my people better than before you came into my land." And when he got through saying so, he stood and said, "I've got to go, for all that sneezing made me weak. I think I'll go to bed and sleep. But when I wake again, I think that you and I should have a drink of grog and speak of cars and flight. But for now, whiz, nighty-night." And as he went on up to bed, I smiled a bit and turned my head, for this adventure was great fun, but could there be another one? I shut my eyes again, of course, and found I was upon a horse, dressed in armor. I've no doubt I was a knight, so tall and stout, and in my hand a wooden lance. I spurred my horse and made him dance. Then off we trod up north, I guess, in search of damsels in distress. It hadn't taken long at all before I'd come to Chadoff Hall, a castle of the biggest sort, surrounded by the deepest moat. Across the bridge and through the gate I found Lord Chadoff up quite late, and sobbing by the fireplace while staring off into distant space. "My fortune," he began to say, "is something I will give away to any knight who, brave and strong, will go and bring my daughter home. For she was taken, as you know, 24 days ago by a dragon," he now cried, with icy cold and steely eyes, "and breathes of fire on his tongue, and strikes great fear in everyone. And though I've sent out 7 men, none returned, not one of them. So now I plead, be there a knight with nerves of steel who shows no fright, and will go set my daughter free and reunite her here with me." Again Lord Chadoff laid his head upon his hands, then rose and said, "You there with your sword and lance, could you be this knight perchance?" I smiled up to this great man. "Get your daughter quick I can, and slay the dragon, it's my job. I'll serve him as shish kebab." And so before it got too late, I rode off through the castle gate, and off into the setting sun. I'll have her back when morning come. Now dragons ordinarily prefer dark caves so they can see a knight who might try to attack, but who can't see the dragon back. And with his vantage dark and grand, the dragon had the upper hand, so therefore I would have to plan to sneak around and take a stand behind the dragon quietly and save the damsel gallantly. I rode around and checked the scene until I found an opening, just like the one the dragon's in, except he's at the other end. And then I crept on tippy-toe upon the dark and rocky soil. And while I felt along the walls, I thought of all the knights who'd called, hoping for a rescue when they'd never make it home again. And as I made the final turn, I froze in place, for there now burned a candle near the damsel fair, with sparkling eyes and flowing hair. And not too far away from she, the dragon guarded carefully. His tail and his rear left foot kept her safe, but kept her put. I snuck up oh so quietly and stabbed the dragon in his knee, and though I feared the worst instead, the dragon keeled over dead. I placed the damsel on my horse and charted out the fastest course to get her to her father's arms, and then I thought I heard alarms. It was my watch that made the sound and brought me to familiar ground. I blinked my eyes. I was alone. I hadn't ever really flown. I had no wings, no feathers, and my body couldn't catch the wind. I hadn't been a mighty one whose wizardry was called upon. Nor had I sailed the seven seas or brought a dragon to his knees. 'Twas just illusions in my mind that I had used to pass the time. I'd let imagination run and had myself a lot of fun. There really was no talking rock. I know a rock can't really talk. And though you make a lot of friends, it's really fun if you pretend and take a trip inside your head, so try it when you go to bed. And if you say this magic line, your mind will journey every time to places close and far away. All you have to do is say, Grigget Bax and Burgandy, upside down security, better be yet better dream, for many thoughts go forth unseen.
Grigget Bax. I'll have to try it sometime. Thank you for joining us for Uncle Geoffee's Picture Book Stories. I hope to see you real soon.